10 nuclear missiles lost strategic alert within seconds. That part is documented. A glowing red object hovering above the gate is not. On March 16, 1967, every Minuteman I launch facility assigned to Echo flight at Malmstrom Air Force Base registered a no-go condition almost simultaneously. The Air Force investigated for more than a year. Engineers traced the failure to an electronic noise pulse striking a vulnerable component in the guidance and control network. Yet, decades later, former missile officers said unidentified objects had been reported around the facilities. Then, in 2025, another explanation surfaced. The shutdown may have been caused by a classified American electromagnetic pulse test that the crews were never allowed to know about. 3 versions, 1 nuclear base. And only one of them can be the whole truth. Malmstrom sits in Montana, where open prairie stretches so far that distance becomes deceptive. During the Cold War, that empty landscape concealed one of the most destructive weapon systems ever built. Underground launch facilities held Minuteman I intercontinental ballistic missiles. Each group of 10 silos formed a flight, controlled by a 2-man missile crew inside a buried launch capsule. The men in those capsules did not aim missiles or choose targets. Their duty was to keep the force ready, authenticate orders, monitor status indications, and execute a launch only if a valid command arrived through the national chain of authority. 2 officers, 2 keys, strict procedures. The system was designed so that no single person and no single failure could start a nuclear war. But preventing an unauthorized launch was only half the problem. The missiles also had to survive long enough to retaliate after an enemy attack. That meant hardened facilities, buried communication lines, protected electronics, backup power, and physical separation across miles of terrain. The geography made one kind of disaster less likely. A strike on one silo should not destroy the other 9. It did not make the network invulnerable. At 8:45 on the morning of March 16th, the status board inside Echo Flight's Launch Control Center changed. The crew commander was Captain Eric Carlson. His deputy was First Lieutenant Walter Figel. One after another, the 10 remote launch facilities reported no-go indications. According to the declassified command history, all 10 lost strategic alert nearly simultaneously. No other comparable Minuteman configuration in the wing failed at that time. The missiles had not exploded. Their warheads had not armed themselves. The silos had not opened. No-go meant the weapons were no longer in the condition required for immediate use. In the language of nuclear deterrence, 10 missiles had just disappeared from the ready force. Maintenance and security teams were dispatched across Echo flight. The first question was practical. What had failed? The second was far more dangerous. Had someone caused it? An ordinary electrical malfunction could be repaired. Sabotage, a Soviet operation, or a previously unknown vulnerability could affect the credibility of the entire American missile force. A weapon does not deter an enemy merely because it exists. It deters only if the enemy believes it will work when ordered. The initial investigation found no obvious physical damage that explained the simultaneous loss. Engineers examined commercial power, switching events, cabling, transformers, surge protection, the launch control center, and the components linking the capsule to the dispersed facilities. Boeing, the Minuteman contractor, became involved. Other military engineering organizations tested how electrical disturbances could move through the system. The investigation eventually focused on the logic coupler in the missile guidance and control system. Tests showed that an electronic noise pulse could produce indications similar to those recorded at Echo. A later official Air Force history summarized the event bluntly. An entire flight had gone off alert because an electronic noise pulse struck a vulnerable component. The effect was compared to the electromagnetic disturbance produced by a nuclear explosion. That finding destroys one of the most repeated claims in the popular version of Malmstrom. Engineers did not conclude that no technical mechanism could disable the missiles. They identified a mechanism and demonstrated that the relevant electronics were susceptible to it. What they did not establish with equal confidence was the original source of the pulse. The network connecting the Launch Control Center to all 10 facilities offered a possible common path. The silos were physically separated, but separation did not mean 10 completely unrelated systems had to fail independently. A disturbance entering a shared command or information route could affect an entire flight. That is exactly why the incident caused such concern. The system contained a common mode vulnerability inside an architecture built around survival. Later, modifications added protection against electromagnetic interference. No alien technology was required to explain why the missiles entered no-go status. But identifying a vulnerable component is not the same as reconstructing the exact event that produced the pulse on that morning. And this is where the lights enter the record. The 341st Strategic Missile Wing's command history contains a sentence that has fueled the argument for decades. It says, rumors of unidentified flying objects around Echo Flight during the fault were disproven. A mobile strike team that had checked facilities in nearby November Flight reported no unusual activity, and military radar personnel reported no related atmospheric or radar interference. To skeptics, that language closes the case. The Air Force heard a rumor, checked it, and rejected it. To UFO investigators, the sentence opens a different door. Why did an engineering history mention UFO rumors at all? Why was a team from November Flight questioned about an event centered on Echo? Did the official inquiry test the correct witnesses, or did it dismiss a story before its source could be preserved? Walter Figel later described receiving an odd report while maintenance personnel were being sent to the silos. In recorded interviews conducted decades after the event, he recalled that a man at one facility mentioned seeing a UFO above the site. A security team also reportedly used the term. Figel said he treated the comments as a joke and continued managing the emergency. That is not the same scene presented in the original script. There is no contemporary document showing Figel watching a circular object on a monitor, no authenticated 1967 statement from a guard describing a disc over a silo, and no surviving photograph or radar track. Figel was underground. Whatever he knew about an object came through a telephone report whose original speaker has not supplied a contemporaneous written account. The echo evidence therefore separates into two unequal layers. The missile shutdown is documented in real time. The UFO connection rests on disputed recollections and on the fact that UFO rumors were important enough to be denied in the unit history. Then comes Oscar Flight. Robert Salas was a young Air Force launch officer assigned to Malmstrom. He later said he was on alert underground when the flight security controller called about strange lights moving in the night sky. The first report did not sound immediately hostile. Then the controller called again, frightened, and described a glowing red object hovering above the gate of the launch control facility. According to Salas, status lights began changing almost immediately. Missiles under his crew's control entered no-go conditions. His commander, Fred Mywald, later supported significant parts of the account, although published recollections differ over whether 6, 8, or all 10 missiles were affected. Salas did not see the object himself. His direct experience was inside the capsule, the telephone calls and the missile indications. The visual observation belonged to security personnel on the surface. That distinction does not make the account worthless. It tells us exactly what kind of evidence it is. It is also where chronology becomes unstable. Salas went public in the 1990s, almost 3 decades after the alleged encounter. Early in his search, he associated his memory with the documented Echo shutdown. His location was later identified as November Flight, then Oscar Flight. He eventually settled on the night of March 24th, 8 days after Echo. Memory does not become false simply because a witness struggles with a date. Launch crews rotated through identical capsules, followed repetitive procedures, and were discouraged from discussing sensitive events. A person can remember a terrifying telephone call while misplacing its calendar position, but changing the flight and date matters because Oscar lacks the paper trail that Echo generated. Echo produced urgent messages, a command history entry, maintenance records, engineering analysis, contractor testing, and corrective work. No comparable declassified 1967 package has emerged, confirming that every Oscar missile went off alert on March 24th. The absence of records is not proof that nothing happened. Nuclear documentation can remain classified, be lost, or never become public. Yet absence prevents the Oscar story from being presented with the same certainty as Echo. The popular legend quietly stitches the two accounts together. It takes the contemporary engineering record from Echo and attaches the vivid red object from Salas's later Oscar testimony. The result is a perfect story. Guards watch a craft hover, 10 missiles die, and the Air Force fails to explain either event. The real case is less clean. At Echo, 10 missiles definitely lost alert status, but the official record rejected a UFO connection and identified an electronic mechanism. At Oscar, Salas described the strongest UFO encounter, but no equivalent contemporary record publicly confirms a full flight shutdown. One case supplies the machinery, the other supplies the object. The mystery exists in the attempt to prove that they belong together. There are conventional explanations for the lights. A bright planet can look as though it is moving when observed against a dark horizon. Mars has been proposed in skeptical reconstructions of the Oscar report. Aircraft, stars distorted by atmospheric conditions, and regional UFO rumors could have shaped how guards interpreted unfamiliar lights. There are also conventional explanations for why recollections converged. Once the Echo documents became public, veterans searching for an event from their youth gained a fixed historical anchor. Details from different alerts, facilities, and conversations could attach themselves to the only documented full-flight failure. That would not require dishonesty. Human memory does not replay the past like cockpit video. It rebuilds it. Then, nearly 60 years after the shutdown, the government story changed again. In June 2025, the Wall Street Journal reported that investigators from the Pentagon's All-Domain Anomaly Resolution Office had uncovered a classified explanation. According to officials cited by the newspaper, the Air Force had been testing the vulnerability of its missile systems to electromagnetic pulse. Personnel inside the operational chain were allegedly not informed. The test disabled the missiles, and secrecy allowed UFO interpretations to grow around the incident. If that account is accurate, it fits several known facts with uncomfortable precision. Echo was disabled by an EMP-like noise pulse. Engineers later strengthened Minuteman electronics against electromagnetic interference. Crews who were not briefed on a classified test would report an inexplicable failure. Officials protecting the program would have a reason to deny, compartmentalize, or redirect questions. It would also transform Malmstrom from a UFO story into a secrecy story. But the 2025 explanation has its own evidentiary problem. At the time of this recording, the underlying classified test record had not been publicly released in a form that independent researchers could compare with the 1967 engineering documents. The claim reached the public through reporting about the Pentagon investigation, not through a complete test plan, instrument log, command authorization, or newly declassified after-action report. The explanation may be correct. It is not yet transparent. It also raises questions. Was the alleged EMP test conducted against Echo, Oscar, or another part of the missile complex? Why do the contemporary documents describe an investigation searching for a source if senior officials already knew a test had occurred? Was the engineering team itself kept outside the compartment? And did the reported lights have any connection to the test, or were they later attached to it? There are now two secrecy arguments facing each other. UFO advocates say the Air Force concealed evidence that an unknown intelligence interfered with nuclear weapons. The reported Pentagon finding suggests the Air Force concealed an American test, allowing witnesses to believe something non-human was responsible. Both theories predict missing records, compartmentalization, denials, and confused personnel. That makes secrecy an explanation. but also a machine for manufacturing mysteries that cannot easily be disproven. Strip away every red light and every extraterrestrial conclusion, and the documented core remains serious. 10 Minuteman missiles in one flight lost strategic alert almost simultaneously. A common electronic pathway could defeat layers of physical separation. The system was restored, studied, and modified. America was never rendered defenseless. Malmstrom was only one element of a much larger nuclear triad, including other missile flights, bombers, and submarines. Yet, for a period of hours, one part of that deterrent failed together. That is not absolute domination by an unknown intelligence. It is evidence that the image of perfect control was always partly theater. Machines built for apocalypse are still machines. Their cables carry noise. Their logic contains thresholds. Their operators depend on indicators they cannot personally verify. Classification may protect the method of defense, but it can also prevent the people closest to an event from understanding what they experienced. Perhaps the lights in the shutdowns were unrelated. Perhaps the Oscar account preserves a real incident for which the paperwork remains hidden. Perhaps a secret EMP test created both the technical failure and the decades of confusion. None of those possibilities requires a spacecraft. None fully explains why so many former military personnel remain convinced that something was present near America's nuclear weapons. The most haunting question is no longer simply who turned the missiles off. It is who knew why, and decided that the men holding the launch keys did not need to know. What is your verdict? Do you trust the documented noise pulse explanation, Robert Salas's account of the red object at Oscar flight, or the reported 2025 claim of a secret American EMP test? Tell us in the comments which single piece of evidence carries the most weight for you. Subscribe to The Shadow Ledger, then continue with our next case at Minuteman Air Force Base in 1968, where a B-52 crew, ground teams, and radar operators became part of another nuclear site mystery. The missiles at Malmstrom returned to alert. The story never did. Another failure restored. Another explanation withheld. Another entry that remains open in the Shadow Ledger.